when we ask ourselves, who is Indiegogo for, what do we think of? And I think, like I said, initially people really thought of people like Bug Assault, a crazy idea, you throw it up there and you see if anyone's interested. Yeah, that is true. People do use crowdfunding for fundraising. They also use it for a few other things. And again, this has really been part of the evolution of crowdfunding. As you can kind of see here, the second thing that we have that people use it for is customer discovery and market validation, branding and awareness, and then market entry. So I'm going to go a little deeper into all of these. So you guys can kind of figure out if one of these four really applies to you, or usually I find it's actually a combination of the four, and sometimes, all four. So yes, this first one, fundraising, this is the more traditional thing that people think about when they think about crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is for startups who need funds to actually manufacture their product, and crowdfunding creates that opportunity for the customers to actually give you that money. So that way you don't need to go to VCs, you don't need to, use all your savings up in order to produce the product. And so this is definitely the more typical one. And like I said, this is often a factor in people's crowdfunding process, but it's not entirely the main thing anymore. The other thing that we're really seeing is that people are using this as a customer discovery and market validation tool. So unlike, selling your product at Target or, just like a brick and mortar, when you are selling a product online, you're really getting a lot of information about your customer base. And so through Indiegogo, you're actually able to learn a lot about who your target customer is, what's working for them, what isn't working for them in the ads that you're running. And you're doing a lot of A/B testing as the 30 to 60 days of the campaign is going on. So that way you're finding out, what sort of messaging really resonates, what doesn't resonate. Maybe this feature isn't really what people are looking for. Maybe this product isn't really what people are looking for. So crowdfunding can be a great market validation tool. So the next thing that we really see people using it for is branding and awareness. And so again, like I said, there's a combination of this. I think pretty much everyone is using this as a way to figure out what their branding looks like. And so it's a really good way to actually generate interest and awareness. Crowdfunding, these days, it is pretty ubiquitous. A lot of huge companies have actually gotten their start in crowdfunding, ones that you wouldn't necessarily even think of. And certainly a lot of people who are trying to do D2C products really did get their start with crowdfunding. And so it's kind of a good way to make that splash, because that's where a lot of those customers kind of exist, and that's where they're going to really find the next big thing. And so, yeah, this is a good way for a lot of people who have already, developed the product and they really are just sitting in the warehouses waiting to ship. This is a good way for them to make that splash early on, rather than doing things like rolling out press releases and some of the other ways that you might think of launching the product. Market entry. And this is something that we actually really find global companies will use Indiegogo for. So companies based out of China, based out of, Europe, they might want to find a more international audience rather than just being kind of a home team sort of company. And so we've actually worked with a lot of huge companies that are kind of, big in Japan who wanted to find a way to get an American audience or get a European audience or something. And so this is a good way to actually do that. Thinking about crowdfunding in 3 stages, I think, is kind of key, especially on Indiegogo. The pre-launch stage is really a part of it that I would say some people don't really even know exists, and they think that they can just skip straight to step 2, which is actually crowdfunding. The pre-launch stage is actually where you're building out your base. So the people who are going to be your first supporters on day 1, they don't just show up out of the ether. You've got to kind of bring them to the page. If you build it, they will come is not necessarily applicable here these days. It can be kind of hard to get noticed. No matter what site you choose, there's a lot of noise on all of them. And so you want to start off with a little bit of a cushion. And that cushion is what you're doing during your pre-launch phase. You're finding people who are interested in supporting this product. And I'm going to go into this a little later on in more detail, but just think of this as like building out your first earliest backers. Then you've kind of got that list. Then you've decided, okay, we're ready to launch the campaign. Then you're going to do the actual crowdfunding. This is anywhere between 15 to 60 days. 60 days is our max. We don't really have a minimum number of days, but 60 days is the maximum. And then after those 60 days are over, you can roll into what we call in-demand on our platform. In-demand is essentially, you can think of it as more like collecting pre-orders after crowdfunding is over. And so this is where you can essentially be indefinitely live on Indiegogo and continue tapping into our audience and sending traffic that way if you'd like to, and collect orders there until you're actually ready to start shipping on your own site. So how do I know I have a good product? And how do I know that, crowdfunding is going to work for me? It is such a public way of doing this. You're really kind of putting yourself out on the world stage, and you're asking for money, and you're asking for people to kind of judge your product and tell you what they think of it. And it requires, I think, nerves of steel. But before that, preparing yourself. There's no such thing as being over prepared for crowdfunding. And so you can certainly, this is one of those things that you can like study your way into a good exam result, I would say. And so one of the ways to do that is to just make sure you have the right product for it. So the example we have here is the Baby Maker campaign. I think that their name is kind of one of the initial things that everyone notices about it. So when they were running ads, a lot of the comments we got there were like, what do you mean the Baby Maker? And as you could see, it's an e-bike. It's not making babies, but they got your attention with it, and that was kind of really the whole point of it. And so that's kind of their shtick. They had another product after this that they launched that they wanted to call the Sex Panther. So like they kind of have a vibe, and yeah, they're just beautiful, e-vehicles essentially. So the things to focus on are just making sure that, first of all, that you have a consumer-focused product. This is not a B2B kind of platform. It's definitely going to be B2C. You're trying to find actual customers and consumers. If your product is meant for a business, then I would say that crowdfunding is probably not right for you, or you should find a more consumer focused aspect of it that you actually think will appeal to an audience on Indiegogo.